Now, on the right, we can see how what was a piece of industrial infrastructure has added a wonderful green park to the city. You can see the railway lines morphing into concrete, and then the concrete, then they morph out again. Lots of planting, and of course, this is open in many ways, but it is shaped by the buildings that are off to its sides and which it runs through. So, another view. We can see the park on the left, and then further along, it actually runs through a new hotel. A hotel has been built over the top. And you can just see at the base of that hotel where the pilotis are, some stairs emerging down. And I have to say, wow, just love those fire escape stairs. But that goes down and into a pretty gritty, the meatpacking district, a really gritty area with guys standing around outside with blood-covered aprons and so on, and sharpening knives, and as well as fashion stores and nightclubs. A very interesting area. On the Highline Park, you get this, we've talked about spatial enclosure, but there are different scales of spatial enclosure. As an elevated railway line, it's always going to be open, and there are some wonderful glimpse views down streets towards the Hudson River in that case, or back into the city, lower Manhattan. But there are also small defined areas where the planting hasn't grown up yet, but that seating area to the right has planting at its base, and that'll grow up on the mesh and create a lovely sheltered corner. So, top left image, looking at what's underneath the High Line, a meat packing establishment, a butchery and so on, but there are still the nightclubs and fashion shops turning up there. So it's, at the same time as it's gritty, it's sophisticated, and it's tough and urban, but it's also soft and green. Now, a project like this is a sort of catalyst for change, and often in urban design, a project is delivered to try and set the standard to encourage positive change in an area, and I think this is one of them. If you lived in one of the apartments nearby and looked out on what was once a railway and is now a wonderful linear park, you'd be very, very pleased. It will add value to the properties around and attract people to the area. On the top right, we see an example of some of the public art. An abstract realisation. You can see some coloured glass. An artist has taken a photograph of the Hudson River in certain light conditions and then chosen at random some of the pixels and expressed that in coloured glass. So there are other examples of public art along there as well. So it's not only just a green stuff and a walkway, it's got interesting things along the way, and that's important. And critically, there are frequent connections to the streets below. And on the right, you can see a broad series of stairs which people sit on. I suspect at times there might be performances there. But at every street, as on the bottom left, there are stairs of some kind going down, and they're all different. And sometimes they go through buildings, they go beside buildings, they go under buildings, but they provide really, really good access. And that leads me directly to my next point, and that is urban designers place high value on making connections. Now, connections at the scale of the city are important. On the top left, we have an example of Phoenix. Now, those aren't crop irrigation circles. That's a residential subdivision. And it's likely that there's economic segregation going on. One of those pods, and they are pods, will be houses of a certain value, another one will be houses of another value, and there will be very little connection between the two. I just wonder, can the colour be fixed up there? It's all changed colour, thank you. Great, thank you. So this is an extreme example of what happens here. I've been involved in projects where the developer I've been involved in subdivision design, and people said, no, we're not going to connect into the existing neighbourhood. Well, my take on that is there's no option, you have to connect or provide the connection for future growth. On the right, emphasising the importance of connections, is a project I was involved in Wellington. It involved a design charrette in Wellington's northern growth area around Granada North. And you can see a circle there, which is a 5-metre ped shed, and a dot in the middle. That's the centre of Granada North. And this was the outcome of a charrette process over about 6 weeks, a number of workshops. And one of the critical things here is connections. Connections between where people live and where they can get local services. That's the red dot, a local neighbourhood centre. needs population to support it, so intensification of population. But there's a whole series of arrows which you can see some red lines up on the top left. That's a bridge proposed over the motorway, another bridge proposed over a railway line, and then on the bottom left, bridges again over the motorway and a road continuing into the residential area to the south. So the connection in that case was important, but the mix of uses is also important. Now, this is the importance of connectivity is shown in the value of urban design research, which I was involved in. And what we found is that connectivity alone is not enough, and Alistair has talked about this. It's having a mix of uses as well as the connections between. There's no point in having sort of roads and streets and paths to everywhere, but there's nothing there. You need destinations, you need the local facilities. Now, this diagram represents the findings of a major literature review looking at research done over the 5 years, primarily over the 5 years 2000 to 2005. And I think, and what it shows is mixed use and connectivity moving off to the left, more convenient access to people, places and activity, of course, but there are benefits there, social benefits. People actually like that. Now that's where, this is one where the discussion was being had here as to how you get people to change. Well, if people have experienced situations where they can walk to all these facilities, the word can be spread, they like it, and there's evidence of that. There are economic benefits. Good connections increase land value, and that's something where you can work on developers. Mixed use and connectivity, increased walking and cycling. However, there's a qualification to that, and I'll read it. Mixed use and connectivity allied with a safe, comfortable street system and supportive social environment. Now, people aren't going to walk or cycle if it's unsafe or if it seems unsafe. If they're going to be blasted off the streets by the wind, they won't walk or cycle either. And if it is not socially acceptable to walk or cycle, they won't do it either. So all of these things need to be considered, and then people may walk and cycle and those health benefits come through. The public health research is absolutely rock solid on this. There is a linkage between certain urban configurations and poor public health outcomes. We had Philippa Howden-Chapman on our team doing this, and there are studies for Africa on this. We stopped looking at them after about number 30, conclusive. Of course, the obvious is if you can walk and cycle more, there's a reduced need to use vehicles, which has certain benefits as well, environmental and even social. If you don't need to have, if people living in a community don't need to use a vehicle to get around, the community is going to suit people of all incomes. Not everybody has a car. Not everybody can drive a car. People under the age of 16, 17, probably going up now, or people who are elderly. So there are real benefits of connectivity.